In this video, I'm going to show you how I took these horrible brad nail holes and made them completely disappear. I've never seen this done on wood before, but I'm sure someone has tried it, and I got the idea from a metal worker who had a jig for clamping onto round tubing, which is essentially what I got, just this big curved surface. So I have this cove bit, and my idea is just to get my fence in place, get a long square block or a long rectangle block, and I'm just going to run it along this cove bit that's going to give me kind of a domed underside that should give me a good flat reference when I'm clamping it onto that curved surface. And hopefully this will make a little more sense once you see it in action. You've probably seen a dowel jig before, and from this point forward, I'm essentially just making the poor man's dowel jig, where I'm using the 1/4 inch bit, which is going to be the same size hole that I'm plugging, and I'm using that to just give me a nice straight reference through this block. And a rich man's jig, the only difference is they usually have a metal sleeve. So I'll show you how that works, but before we get to that, I got to make some plugs, and I have some of these leftover scrap pieces of wood, and I'm just trying to find the grain and the color that most closely matches each of those holes. If you've never seen this before, they're pretty cool. This is called a plug cutter, and they come in all different sizes. This is a 1/4 inch, and they create a tapered plug, which means even if your hole is off by 1/100 of an inch or a couple hundredths of an inch, this 1/4 inch plug actually tapers from a couple hundredths under a 1/4 inch to a couple hundredths over a 1/4 inch. So it just keeps going in until it gets you a perfect fit. Hopefully this shows you why I needed that domed underside, because if this was completely flat on the underside, it would kind of rock there as I had it clamped down. Got my metal cutting bit, got it up to speed, and there's a little bit of tear out. It wasn't terrible, but I did that I think 4 times, and then I just went through the plugs and found the one that best fit each hole, added a little bit of wood glue, and just tapped them in. The final step to filling these imperfections is something most woodworkers do, but hardly any of them actually talk about it or admit to it, and that is just adding a little bit of wood glue with a little bit of wood dust. And I like to mix my dust. I have walnut mixed with white oak just to give a little bit of color variation, because grain has natural color variation in itself. And so I let it sit for about 24 hours. You can see I also had a large gap to fill with that little wood wedge there, which I have another video on. Got it cut with a flush saw, came back with a sander, just sanded it down, and I was thinking this was probably going to be pretty good, but I'll be honest, this turned out even better than I expected. There's the new Blacktail Studio Damascus marking knife, showing 1, 2, and 3. Just kidding, there's number 3. Not too bad.